See everybody shut up real quick.
We're on Facebook.
All right, everybody, we are Facebook Live. I want to welcome everyone to the Jazz Outreach Initiative page. This is the second in our Vintage Vegas Back in the Day series, and we have a really good panel here today. But I want to let you know a little bit about our organization. Jazz Outreach Initiative raises public awareness of jazz. Through concerts, classes, and community building, we bring a world of creativity and a higher consciousness to the students, performers, and the audience. Jazz Outreach Initiative was founded to fill a need in the community for greater exposure to jazz studies and awareness, focusing on students of all ages. Through festivals, clinics, and other outreach programs, Jazz Outreach Initiative celebrates the great American art form by promoting it through the next generation of performances, audiences, and consumers. Our motto is, let's make a difference. So I want to welcome everybody out there. My name is Gary Cordell. I'm the Director of Programming for Jazz Outreach Initiative, and I am your humble host and moderator today. And let's just dive right into the panel. First, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of Joy. He is a longtime friend of mine, a staple in the community. He's a trombonist. He's an audio engineer. I'd like to introduce you to Kurt Miller. Hey, Kurt.
Hey,
Kurt. I'd like to next go once again a longtime friend of mine. I think I met this gentleman almost. I think I even met him before I met Kenny when we were all in college together, and he was working with the marching band. Once again, a longtime Las Vegas musician, a legend here in town. Bass trombonist Sonny Hernandez. Hey, Sonny.
thank you.
One of the first gentlemen that actually hired me and let me play in his band. I'm forever grateful to him. He is a very dear friend and a legend here in Las Vegas on the trombone. His name is Walt Benny.
Oh,
All right.
Hey, Walt.
Hey.
Once again, I mean, I keep saying this. These are all legends here in Las Vegas. One of the finest woodwind players that you'll ever meet. Once again, a Las Vegas legend. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Tom Hall.
hey.
Thank you.
Next gentleman, I have known forever. Done tons of gigs with him. He's on the union board with me. He's one of the finest bass players in the world. I can't say enough about him, but I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Keith Nelson.
Hey.
All right.
Greetings,
Keith. Hi, greetings.
I want to introduce my partner in crime in my nonprofit. He's one of my dearest friends in my life. He's a brother to me. One of the finest trumpet players in the world. I'd like to introduce Kenny Rampton.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
And Kenny, I'd like for you to introduce our last member of the panel today, because I think he has a special connection to you.
All right. Did you get Chuck, Gary?
No, I was going to save Chuck for a little bit.
Okay, we'll save Chuck.
Gotta save it.
Once Chuck comes in, man, it's all over.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, man. Chuck Dalton is one of the finest musicians, trumpet players I've ever worked with, lead or jazz. He is my brother in life, and it's so good to see him on here today. Everybody, Chuck Dalton.
Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck.
Well, back to you, Kenny.
All right, thanks, Gary. Gary's going to let me introduce the final panel member. This is my big brother who set the bar and pushed me from the time I was a little kid. He going through high school, I was Dale's little brother, and he's such an incredible musician. He made me work harder and get better, and just inspired me through my entire life. And he's still one of the baddest musicians I know. Phenomenal vibes player. He plays piano, plays all the percussion. And we kind of wanted to start things off a little bit with my brother Dale Rampton.
Yeah. Hey, Dale.
Yeah. So I kind of, Gary and I spoke, and we kind of wanted to start things off talking about my dad a little bit. You all knew my dad, Roger Rampton.
Oh yeah. Right.
Mine and Dale's dad, and you know, he was a great percussionist and inventor and fun guy, and you know, we miss him terribly, man. Every day. He died way too young. He was 59 when he passed away. I know all of you worked with him at some point or another, but I just kind of want to start things off talking a little bit about Dad. And Dale has really followed in Dad's footsteps. I remember when I was a kid, you know, Dale was playing on the Strip, subbing for Dad, and playing shows on the Strip when he was 16 years old, right, Dale?
Yeah.
Or younger.
Yeah, and you want to talk about setting the bar high, Kenny. You know, you think I set the bar high for you. What about the bar Dad set for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was probably, I mean, I'm probably prejudiced because he's my father, but I can honestly say he was the best percussionist I've ever encountered in my entire life. Besides,
Second that.
Yeah.
Definitely
Roger
was.
was
and when I was young, everybody would say,
Yeah.
tell me that. Your dad's the best. And I said, yeah, they're just being nice. It wasn't until I really practiced a lot and got really good and studied for years that I could actually realize just how good he was. I mean, he could play a temp roll and you would not hear the mallet touching the drum. You just hear his voice ringing purely and in tune always. He was a master timpanist as well as incredible vibist and all the instruments. I mean, he was really probably the best all-around percussionist I've ever encountered. You know.
Now, since you mentioned the timpani, for those who didn't know my dad, you know, I think most people probably saw some version of the Jerry Lewis telethon on TV. And back in the day, you know, when my dad was still around, he was the timpanist on the Jerry Lewis telethon. So Ed McMahon would say timpani roll, and they would show the total of all the money donated. That was our dad playing the timpani roll for years and years. And then later Dale took over that gig, and Dale was a man doing that timpani roll. So yeah, I just want to. It's so good to see everybody here, man, and be able to talk a little bit about Dad, because I don't get a chance to do that often enough.
Yeah, he was incredible.
He was a
Hey,
great
you know
guy.
what? You just reminded me of a question, man. How many of you guys actually played the telethon? Because there was a lot of telethons from here. Yeah, see, I mean, anybody want to speak about those telethons? Because they were kind of unique to Las Vegas. And yeah,
Can I jump in before you go to the telethon?
yeah,
Because as a high school student growing up here in Las Vegas, and you start to, strive to be a musician at some point in time, and then you run into the better musicians that are all state band, all that stuff. And Dale was, ran into Dale. And then there was this legendary dude, which was their father. I mean, and then you get your mind blown because you go over to their place and there's this warehouse of all this percussion. And then you find out that Mr. Rampton was Planet Percussion. Like,
Yes.
what? He was Planet Percussion, and he was the dude that came up with the timpani tuning system that you could lock the tuning in, like right in. And then it wasn't fair anymore because then the Ramptons was like, wait a minute. I mean, we're trying to be regular people trying to come up, and then there's Dale. I mean, he's scoring whole, orchestra tracks and oh yeah, I got this going on. You go meet his dad. His dad is on the Strip. He's already legend. I mean, we're talking 40 years ago. He was legend back then. And then he just lived about his legend. Then he raised up the legends. It's just normal. Dale and Kenny. I mean, it was, you want to talk about, we want destiny. I mean, they just grew up and they didn't have a choice. I don't think you guys had a choice. You guys were either had to be super great or you're going to be in trouble.
we were born into this scene, man. That was like, there was music everywhere and jam sessions all night. Dad had Carl Fontana and all these other cats coming over and jamming all night long every night. And
Tommy Turk.
Sleep in the music room next to the bass drum, when I was 5 years old. But man, Keith, do you remember in high school we had that band? We put a band together with Alex Domschott, Linda Joyner, and Carl Vickers.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That was a good group, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was some hard music. I don't know what we thought we were trying to do.
I don't know. I didn't ever figure that out either.
I didn't know you guys played together when you were that young. That's awesome.
Yeah.
He used to tell me that we used to talk smack about basketball. He said, "You kick my ass." Like, no, I figured
It was smack for him. It was reality for me. I just was that good. You know, it didn't matter if he was 6'3" or whatever.
okay. It might be 50 years later, but it's still on.
Hey,
No,
don't hurt yourself now.
going back to Planet Percussion, when I'm a retired middle school band director, and one of the greatest things your dad and them came up with over there was the maracas machine. You remember that? In fact, we went through a couple of them over at my middle school, but it was like the best because all they had to do was tap it. Because people try to shake those things, man. It was like, but that, and then there was another one. There was another type of bell type thing also that they used with both hands, and we went through a lot of the equipment, that your dad had, triangle beaters and all sorts of stuff like this. That was like a lifesaver for a lot of the band directors here in the district. I remember we went through a lot of their equipment. Had an open tab there, and of course we paid them. But it was like just the inventions that they came up with from playing on the strip and having to choreograph where they had to run around. Because I remember Roger and all those guys when they were playing the shows, like whatever it was either the Lido or the Trop or whatever. They had to choreograph all their instruments according to the show. And sometimes they had to play backwards, not facing the director, the MD, and they had to look into a mirror. They had to watch what was going on in a mirror, and they came up with all these machines. It made life so much easier. And it was just from their experiences on the strip and playing these shows that were these crazy shows, these production shows that they had to be running all over the place. They were always moving to.
Hey, Chuck, you were on the Lido show, right?
Yeah,
That was a Lido show.
Yeah.
Chuck was.
I played on the relief band 2.5 years with Roger too.
Yeah.
And, the percussionist was the highest paid guy in the band by far. Because they had 18 or 20 things to play. They got 18 or 20 doubles. Sometimes they made more than the darn director did,
Oh yeah.
We had to study just to turn the pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
4 music stands,
It's like playing Spike Jones or something, man.
It was like one man doing the work of 5.
Yeah, those guys used to have a chart. I remember looking at the chart that some of them would make up, and it told them where they had to go, and like where they had to turn and what they had to do. Otherwise, they were, sometimes, like I say, up there they had limited area where they had all their equipment, and they'd have various mirrors and just, they had to know where to go to the next instrument.
You got to jump from one instrument clear across the bandstand to another while reading a chart down. Okay, you're looking at it here, and now it's on a different piece of paper, clear across the bandstand. You got to find your place in that, as well as play the part. And there's not time. You have to. So we would highlight the parts in yellow and orange and red. It looked like a Christmas tree, jumping back and forth and. Plan ahead. We have to pre-tune the timpani. We'd have to make sure we have the duck call out for when the monkey jumps in the air, and
You made the big bucks, man.
It was a 2 hours of, and if you missed one cue, you're in big trouble.
It just make me
Yeah, totally.
because Roger was with us at the Riv for years.
Excuse me.
And,
Pardon me.
became very close friends. And can you imagine a band like that with your dad? And Carl Fontana was on it, Archie LaCoe, and the Billy Hodges, band like that.
Oh, Billy,
Dad made the band a different band. It was
Talk about Planet Percussion. I told Roger one day I need to buy some percussion from you. Well, the next night he came to work. He had a whole big bag of it. I said, "Here." I said, "How much owe you?" He said, "Nothing." So I still have all those percussion instruments too.
That's great.
Wow.
That's awesome, man.
Hey, Walt, were you on any of those can one of you guys talk about people tossed around that term relief band, and that came up in our last conversation. I know a lot of you guys were on the relief band. Can one of you guys expand on that? What a relief band was?
Sure, I'll do that one. At the time, all through the 60s, 70s, and the first most hotels were on a 7-night-a-week policy. So the entertainer would work all 7 nights, but the house orchestras would have 1 night off. So 2 relief bands, 2.5 relief bands actually were created. Johnny Haig had 1.5, and Lou Elias had 1. And the jobs of those orchestras, I was on the Lou Elias band for 5 years, and the jobs of those bands were to go do the night off of the house orchestra. So Lou Elias had, for instance, the Frontier, the Sands, the Desert Inn, the Riviera, and then both rooms at the old MGM, which is now Bally's, upstairs and downstairs, the production show and the Star. And then Haig had Lido and Tropicana and a whole bunch of Caesar's Palace. So between all the hotels, the 2 bands took care of all the nights off. So we would basically go in and do a quick rehearsal in the afternoon for whatever act was there that week, and then do the show that night. And the next day we'd go to another hotel and do a quick rehearsal in the afternoon and do 2 shows that night, and do that over and over and over, different hotel every night. So it was great for sight reading.
And that was the
It paid time and a half too.
Yeah, it was a higher scale.
And that was the same for the production shows too, right? So one of the bands did the production shows too.
Well, yeah, we had, the only production show Lou had was Hallelujah Hollywood, which then later became Jubilee in the old MGM. Haig had what? Lido, Tropicana, what other ones were there?
Dudes and Lido.
He had the Flamingo too, City Lights.
Flamingo was the B band.
Yeah, Haig had most of the production shows, and
Frontier.
Sahara, yeah.
Frontier was Lou Elias. We had the Frontier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was an awesome gig because, man, you just were never bored. It was just fantastic. Yeah, that's right. Haig had the Hilton. Actually, there were more than 7 remain. Lou had 6 of the hotels, and there were more than 7 remaining hotels. That's why Haig actually had about a band and a half. He had what they called his A band and his B band, because his A band had full-blown 6 nights a week with 6 of the hotels, and then the other couple remaining hotels were done by a second relief band of Haig's.
Yeah. And those were all 2-show nights back then, not 1 show. 3 Lido shows on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right.
So you think about the caliber of musician that had to go in to do that, and just a short rehearsal and play a different show every night and sound like the regular guy and not miss any notes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing. And I don't know of anywhere else around now or even back then that has that kind of bar for it, you know?
You want to hear a typical relief band story, and there's probably 100 of these. This one happened to me. I'll make it very quick because I know we're on time. We never really knew what was going to happen. You know, we do a quick rehearsal and go do the show that night. And back at the time, Bobby Vinton had, he was doing a Tommy Dorsey medley in the middle of his show. So at one point, it was at Bally's. So I showed up that day for rehearsal, and we were on this big, gigantic rolling band cart. And they were big bands back then, full brass and strings. And at one point, in the middle of the show, the lights go out, and the band cart rolls downstage with all of us on it. And then a spotlight comes on me. I stand up and I start Sentimental, and then the medley starts. Well, that night they forgot to move the band cart. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen. And so I stand up to do the solo with the spotlight on me. And at that moment, the stagehands hit the button on the band cart, and I went straight back into the tempo.
These weren't smooth rides either, yeah.
Yeah. Bill Smiley and Carmen Meswar caught my horn and me. I went back, and Dick Albert kind of caught my back. And of course, the audience died laughing. And Bobby Vinton remembered that for 40 more years. I ran into him 40 years later, and he still remembered it. So you never know with the relief band. You never know.
No, that's too funny.
Tom. I like Bobby Vinton because he didn't like me.
Oh no!
And I didn't care.
That's funny.
What's the name of that? Goody Goody.
Gosh, should be still.
Well,
Suzanne Summers.
Goody
Goody
Goody.
goody.
Goody Goody. Okay, Goody Goody. What was the name of the MD? I forgot his name. We just saw him the other day for Suzanne Summers.
Artie Butler.
Artie Butler. So
Get after that.
they had us tiered. The trombones were tiered. So it's like Kurt and I are over here, and Walt's like on a different tier, and it was at the Desert Inn. and we were just goofing because they get boring sometimes, especially when the acts were coming in and you're playing them so much they rotate. And so I turned to Kurt. I remember turning to Kurt. So this one part when she was singing "Goody Goody" went "Goody Goody," something like that, right? So Kurt jumps in, and so he's going down. When he came around, he said "Goody Goody." So before you know it, we were all going "Goody Goody" and all this and that, and we didn't notice that Artie Butler was standing right there, and he goes, "It's in, it's in, it's in," and we're going, "What?" He goes, "You guys are in the show. You're going to sing that in the show." And I go, "I don't want to sing that in the show." And he goes, "Yeah, you're in. That's it. You guys are in." So and I'm like, and I'm getting real dark about this. I'm not liking it, and so when we got to it, I look on Kurt's like, "Oh man," he puts his mic up. I go, "We're really going to do this." So I stood up with him, and then we're all three of us, we're looking at each other, and it came around to that, and we sang it. We sang "Goody Goody," and I thought it was okay, and then it came around again, and we did it again, and Artie Butler was going like, "No, no." It was we were singing so awful. He was wanting us to stop, but Walt didn't catch the cutoff. He didn't catch the not.
I didn't see the cutoff.
Huh?
I didn't see him cut us off.
Yeah, he didn't see the cutoff, and Walter jumped up and yelled. He yells through the microphone, "Goody Goody, I'll play him." I don't think it was twice, but I couldn't. Butler's having a cow trying to get him to sit down, and we were laughing so hard. Oh my God!
Great.
Sonny, that reminds me. I got some advice on the bandstand. It was actually my gig, and I was going to have. You guys all know the great lead player Tom DeLibero. He was coming in to sub for me, and I'm young and I'm got my first gig. It's my gig, and I'm one of my mentors and icons are here, so I'm trying to do my best, and I'm adding a bunch of stuff and doing all this, and in between shows when I was going to talk to him about it, he said, "Man, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice." And I said, "What is that?" He said, "Don't do anything that you're not prepared to do 7 nights a week, 2 shows a night."
Yep.
Okay? Because it's going to limit, they're going to get it. It's going to be in the show, and it's going to limit you on who wants to come in and sub for you. Because he says, as it stands right now, I don't want to do all this crap that you're doing right now. So, I got to thinking about it, and he was right. It's like, play the book, man. Play the book. Play the best of your ability, but don't start adding stuff, because next thing you know, you got a bunch of stuff and then, your sub will come in and go, "I ain't doing that, man." So that's funny, Sonny. You mentioned that, man.
Yeah, we learned the hard way a couple of times on that.
Yeah.
Kurt can tell you on the relief bands, the house bands always got mad at us because we'd come in and, on Haig's band, I'm sure the same Lewd band, once in a while we'd take some stuff up and have some fun. And then they'd all be, "Well, what the heck you did this, man? The conductor wants us to take that up now. Don't do that anymore." So,
Yeah.
Gary's right. You don't be careful what you throw in there, because you might create
Hey,
something
Chuck,
you don't want.
Chuck, you remember on the Lido show that Frank Fabio came in to sub for Jay?
Yeah.
Jay caved in the band. That changed the whole thing, man.
Yeah.
And then Jay got fired after that. Frank got the gig.
That was
Yeah,
the hard
that's,
thing being on the relief band was, if you had to go in and do a production show, the production show guys, you know, they're doing that night after night after night. And after you do 600 or 700 of those shows, they're not really following the music that much anymore. And they've changed things altogether. I mean, they've done it all together without even knowing it, different articulations. So then you come in to sub on a production show and you're like hanging out to dry because what you're playing in the book isn't really what the band's playing anymore, just because they've changed it over time. And it was always.
They got bored with it after a while.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, man. Exactly. The music looked like someone blew their nose on it.
Who knows what that was, buddy? Yeah.
They did.
Stains all over and shredded up, and it was like, you know, you're looking at it and it's like, what am I going to do with this? You know, and it's like, okay, just like come in and, you know, we'd come in and watch a show with, like say Barry Himmelfarb at the Lido. So I'd come over and I'd sit next to him and Gary Hypes, and I would sit there and watch the show go by. And Trimble was playing lead at the time. Oh, there we go. But anyway, it's like, but it was like I was looking at the book, and it was looking, and like parts of the book were like gone, and it's like you had to like memorize what they were doing and what they were playing. And like Kurt said, they were so tired of playing this stuff 2 or 3 times a night for 52 weeks a year that Trimble and the other guy, Matt Johnson, was there when I was subbing for him, and what they were doing that during certain parts of the show, Trimble would start playing riffs. So he'd make something up, and he'd turn to you like join in. So I said, all right. So we're trying to figure out what they're playing. So and then you're like playing a riff, like where are we? And then like, you know, it was pretty difficult. It was.
Well, you know, when you guys talk about that, it was interesting when we was coming out of as Sonny and Kurt and we were coming out of UNLV and getting into the scene. And as you started to intern on these bands or start to get introduced to be able to play them, and we would see these guys, at least for me, it tripped me out. I never seen anything like it because I was so interested in music and I had to pay attention. And these guys would be reading magazines. I mean, they weren't even looking at the music. And you go, how good are these guys? I mean, they can play the show and be paying attention to something completely different. It was more important to have your right magazine than it was to have the music up.
Until somebody made a mistake.
Oh, no.
Carl Sanders, where you watch TV.
Yeah. But Chuck and I were on the Tropicana, the Follies band, and it was around this time going into August, like when the monsoons, and Joe Castro was the musical director at the time.
Yeah, Poncho
You remember
Sorry, Joe, if you're listening.
We went on about that, got in trouble for it the next day after we were hanging at the Union. I remember that. But anyway, the monsoon hit. So the storm hit and lightning and all this and that, and we're inside. Then all of a sudden, you know, none of us, a lot of us had the lights turned off on the rack, and the guys are like reading, like you say, magazines, like Eddie Morgan would do that. And then all of a sudden the power goes out and everything just goes like that. And we're like, whoa. And we're all like looking around, and all of a sudden the lights come back on and Joe Castro screams, "Measure 450 down!" And like that, and he gives us a downbeat, and we didn't know we were up. And he had a big
Because half the guys didn't even have the book open.
we didn't have our books up. So he's screaming at us, and he's trying to conduct the show, and it's coming, and he didn't want to stop it, so it was like the people that were playing, and it was like, oh my God, yeah.
That's too funny. Hey, Tom, what were you on any of these shows? Which shows did you play on?
Well, I was at the Riviera for 25 years.
Whoa.
And before that, I played every hotel in town that no longer exists. They all been imploded. Yeah, I was at,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
The first hotel was Earl Green at the Dunes. And then I went upstairs with Bill Reddy. And then I went with Buddy Rich for a while. And then he wanted to go to Europe. And I said, I'm not leaving town. So after about a year, we played at the Aladdin all the time. So we were there every night. So all the shows would come there and after work, and we'd play like till 4 o'clock in the morning, and then go to the racket club and play tennis all night till the sun come up, and then go home, you know. But and then Bill Reddy hired me back on the Dunes when I quit Buddy Rich, and then I went to the Frontier, and let's see, I played the Desert Inn. That was one of the first hotels when they were doing Hello America, and they had the floor going down and the water coming, and there was a sinking of the Titanic. The damn place, it used to flood more than anything else, and if guys would fall down in the goddamn hole and stuff like that in the water. But the reason I don't have these nice stories about the relief band is because for most of my life, I worked the seventh night too. So I heard all the stories, but I was always reading the same magazine.
That's too funny. You know,
I've got a funny one, Gary. I can
Every
tell.
hotel that's been imploded.
Go ahead.
hey, hang on, Chuck.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Every hotel that was imploded, I was in their house band. Maybe that's why they blew them up.
You were too hot for him, man. What were you going to say, Chuck?
Well, I'm going to tell one funny one because it gets, like Kurt was saying, once you play these shows 2, 3, 4,000 times, you know the show so well. So you look for other ways for entertainment, even if it's not musical. But I'm going to tone this down a little bit because we're on the air. All right, Alan Ware. You guys remember, Alan was a trumpet player in the group Chase, Bill Chase's 4-trumpet group. A really good trumpet player. He happened to play fourth, but he's a really good trumpet player. And we had both gone to Marie Callender's and had their famous chili and cornbread that night.
Uh-oh.
So I think you know what's coming. And there was a famous juggler. He won some award as the best juggler. Chris Cremo was his name.
Oh.
And, part of his act was he had his stop time thing, and he go like 21 cigar boxes, and we had these 4 stop time. We go bump, had a box, bump, had a box, bump. Well, we both had a little gas at the time, and so when we got to those between he and I, and we had a 1,500 Norman mics right in front of us, so every one of these things, stop time was like, anyway, by the fourth one, the whole band couldn't play the music. They were laughing so hard, and conductor Bill Newkirk got so mad. He was livid. And for the next break, we got you two in my office, and he was trying to reprimand us, and we were giggling so hard. He just, get out. Just get out. I don't want to see it.
That's too funny.
And that's about the best thing we ever did at the Stardust.
Does anybody know the story about somebody, as the trumpet player, who had quite amazing control over that? That was a particular talent they had, was the ability to fart on command. And they actually they cut a hole into their chair.
Okay,
and
hang on.
Yeah,
everybody, let's keep names out of it, but I know the story.
We can say the first name, right?
No, let's keep the names out of it.
Okay.
They taped a funnel to the bottom of the chair, put a hole in it, and then had a tube going along the bandstand, going up the band leader's stand, and just tortured this poor band director, whoever it was, band leader. I'm not sure. I can't remember who it is. Someone's got to send me a message. Okay,
well,
somebody. Okay, that's who I thought it was.
Quit, brother. That's what I'm saying.
What's that?
When it gets that bad, you need to quit. You know.
One of the funniest stories, man. You guys, it's just amazing, man. I mean, you guys are all such master musicians, and for me, all you guys are living legends, man, and the legendary musicians from Las Vegas are really the heart and soul of Las Vegas, man. Like the entertainment business, it's just amazing, man. Thank you all for being here. And
That's fun.
you know, growing up as a kid in that environment, my dad was one of your peers playing with you guys, and he would take me to rehearsals. And I used to hear you guys play as a kid and just think that's how it's supposed to be done by everybody, not realizing that you guys are the greatest musicians in the world. You know, and it's pretty amazing, man, to get to sit here and hear all your stories, man. This is fun. I want to talk a little bit, man. We talked a little bit last time about the scene at the Musicians Union, the kicks bands and the hang there, the back room with the pool table and the bar and the, you know, all the kicks bands that played. Because when I was coming up, now I came up at kind of the tail end as a high school kid. Dale used to take me there, and I would go there with my friends in high school. My dad would take me there too, to hear all these great kicks bands and, you know, all the baddest cats in town playing. You guys got any good stories about the Union back in the day?
Yeah.
Those kicks bands?
I got a good one. I used to go there every night, and I listened to these guys who, like, just the most amazing musicians in the world, literally. And, you know, a lot of kids went around with baseball cards, you know, with all their favorite athletes. I had musicians were my heroes. These guys were just phenomenal, amazing. I would go listen to them every night. And I was a kid. I was like 15, 16 years old. I started hanging out there, and the bartender was Jimmy Campbell. And
Yeah.
and he'd always come up, hey, he'd serve me beer, and I'd start drinking, and I'd be having fun. I'd get drunk as a skunk, right? And somebody ratted on me. They told my dad. They said, hey, your kid's getting drunk at the Union every night, man. So Dad goes to Jimmy Campbell. He goes, Jimmy, you got to stop serving booze to my kid, man. We're getting in trouble here, man, you know. And so I go to the Union the next night, and Jimmy's like, I can't serve you, man. And I'm like, oh, man. So I'm like looking so down. So Jimmy goes, here you go. And he served me beers anyway. But he said, keep it cool, though. That Union Hall, man, the best musicians, some of them. I mean, remember Chuck playing jazz and lead there every night. All these.
You've got to picture this scene right here. From what I understand, even the guys in New York at the time said they didn't have what we had, which was after hours. So they'd have a band in the afternoon rehearse. Then they'd have, when the guys were working the shows, they had an early band that went from like 8 till 11. And then after the guys got off the shows, they had one that would start about 2:30, because shows usually got out around 2, and it would go to about 5:30, sometimes a little later in the morning. And it was like a nightclub scene. You have to picture it was like white tablecloths, tables, chairs. The band was on like a tri-level, just like you were watching a stage in Las Vegas. They had their own complete bar. Beers were 50 cents. Anything. Hennessy cognac was $1. And in the recreation room, we had regular pool table, snooker table, and ping pong table. And man, I'll tell you, there were, at the time I was there, I started in 75, there were 650 main room musicians working 50 weeks a year, and another 600 lounge players that worked all the time that was just the Union ones. I'd give you an idea. And so it was so much fun down there. It was crowded every night.
It was packed, yeah, because you're right. There were 600 or so. I started 1 year after you. I started working in 76 with Trimble, and man, you'd go down there at night, and it was hot. I mean, the bar was packed, the tables were full, the band was roaring, man, and then the game room was full. It was always going, always going.
Oh yeah. You know that
Like kicks bands. I started my kicks band, I don't know when, Sonny probably knows. But anyway, I did about six months. I did one night a month about 6 times. One night a month. And I never repeated a chart. And they couldn't believe it that I could do that, you know. So many kicks band would play the same chart every week.
Right.
I did it once a month, and I didn't repeat one chart once.
Yeah.
This is the remote that Walt gave me of his band that we did with Brian Saunders. Brian Sanders.
Sanders, yeah.
Yeah, Brian Sanders did a remote late night at the Union Hall, and
wow.
and we started a little bit late, and and it was live on KNPR, and one of the charts was "Sentimental Over You," and all of us had to play the Tommy Dorsey theme, and it started. I forget who started it out. It was
I started it.
I think Kurt was there, Dick McGee, myself, maybe Texter, and then Walt. I think that's the group. And everyone, when they went for the high note, and even when I had to play it down an octave, we all messed it up, and then we couldn't stop playing, stop laughing. And we had to do all these restarts live because we couldn't play. It was like everyone quit missing the high D or whatever it was, right? And
they played all the outtakes on the radio.
Yeah.
I just sent Walter several cassettes of Union tapes we found of his band down there. You got those, right? Yeah, just discovered them.
Wow.
Well, I gotta tell you, I learned so much on these Kicks bands, and all you guys were on these. But I gotta tell a story on myself. Before I came out here, my background was pretty much marching band, and I played in what they call a stage band. Not really a big band. I had no big band experience. Sonny got me my first opportunity to play down at the Union. He heard me play. He was helping out with the marching band back in '85. And he heard me play a little bit. And he said, "Hey man, why don't you come down? Robin's band needs somebody to play in it." So I came down, and here I am. I'm a young guy, and I got a couple of high notes, and I think I'm, the best thing that come along. And I'll never forget, man. The first chart that came up was a tune called "Tall Cotton," and it had a little solo in it. And I said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna impress everybody." Well, the trumpet section was Mike Paulson, Dave Culp, Chuck Dalton, first time I met you, Chuck, and myself. We hit the downbeat. Measure by measure, my ego got smaller and smaller and smaller to where I had never heard anything like that in my life. It's like getting thrown into the deep end of the pool, and you're sitting there with what, would become, not only my colleagues, but my dear friends. But you learn quickly just how big that gap is between student and musician, and it's one of the things that, Kenny and I are trying to get back to where we can have a band like that, and we can show these younger musicians, that type of, to have them sit along you guys and sit alongside these legends to learn. Before I get off on the subject, I'm going to tell another story on myself, and then I'll back away. But it's pretty funny. I know you guys know the Count Basie arrangement of All of Me, right? With the Billy Byers, that starts out with all the high C concerts, da do da ba dee da, that one right there. So the first time I ever played that chart, I was sitting beside my dear friend Chuck Dalton, and Chuck gets that, he's playing lead, right? So he pulls that part out, and he looks at it and he goes, "Buddy, this would be a good one for you to learn." And I said, "Oh man, okay." And I'm all nervous now, right? He said, "Now just pace yourself."
You didn't look like nervous.
Yeah, well, I was. I had a lot of hair back then, so he said, "Just pace yourself. Don't overblow. Don't do anything." Okay. And I said, "Okay." He says, "Oh, here we go." So he starts counting off like this. He goes, count it off. I'm going to sing it. I can't sing, but I'm going to sing exactly how I played this thing. All right. Pia-da-da, 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 pia-da-da. And then it goes into a piano solo, right? So I'm sitting there, got my head down, I'm red, and I'm beating myself up. And Chuck sitting over there, he goes, well, I give you one thing, you consistent, I tell you that.
We became great friends at that point.
Absolutely. Like, I tell you what, I went home. I had never heard that arrangement. I went home, found an arrangement, worked on it all week, came back to the kick stand again. He passed it to me.
Nailed it.
That's the kind of education you get, like that. I'll never forget.
Some of those old timers, man, I learned the same way in those rehearsal bands. Those real old timers, they weren't so nice about it,
Yeah, you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? You learned a lot quicker like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, that Robin's band went through I don't know if I can say this, but we went through a lot of various names that Lou Dell, remember Lou Dell?
Yeah.
Lucien Del Giudici. He was the trumpet player and he was the bartender down at the Union. Remember Lou Dell?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, we all do, right? And so they had a chalkboard, and it was like every night or whenever they would tonight's band, and it was called Robin. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to, you can edit it. But it said Robin and his 7 hoods, okay? And then it would say Robin and his nesters. But the best name that stayed with it was the Gay Nazis for Christ.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we can't. We need to stay away from those.
A different drummer there, buddy.
You remember that? We were that band. We got famous for being for members of that group, man. I swear.
No, Gary, we were talking.
Oh,
no. You were talking story.
All right.
We were
Everybody
talking about
just
stories
turned us
earlier.
off. Sorry. Again.
Pardon? Oh,
Kurt,
Everybody just turned us off. Yeah, right.
your audio is distorted a little bit.
Yeah, our internet is out over here, so I'm having to go through the phone. And is it working at all?
yeah, now we hear you.
Yeah, there you are.
And, I don't mean
Might
to
help. Does that make it any
take too
better?
much time, but Lou Dell was a wonderful cat, man.
Oh,
And I remember seeing him. I said, "Hey, Lou Dell, I'll have a drink or whatever," and Lou Dell would go, "What are we, rats?"
You're right.
Yeah, remember that? What are we, rats?
He was the master horse rider.
I'm swinging mine. No,
Yeah, he was. You know that in my first introduction to Lou was like that first or second week that I was at the Union. I came into the Union Hall to play a band. I came walking in. It was Jim Fuller's band, and he was the lead band. I was subbing for somebody, either Brian Bergstrom or oh man,
Ray Russell.
Yeah, someone, and what happened was, I'll never forget. It was we're sitting there, the band's playing, and all of a sudden Jim turns around to Lou and says, "Hey, Lou, do you want one? Why don't you take one?" So Lou whips out his trumpet from behind the bar and starts playing chorus after chorus of blues, and it was just awesome. I said, "This is the town for me."
Gary, where'd you lose it? It's what I want to know. Yeah.
Man, growing up in that environment as a kid in Las Vegas, there was so much music all the time, man, and the spirit was so high. Everybody wanted to play. Everybody hanging at the Union, and it's changed a lot in Las Vegas. The scene there has changed. It kind of, going back to the strike, I think, is when it really changed the trajectory of what Las Vegas was going to be for years to come. And with this organization that Gary and I founded, and Kurt is now our vice president, Jazz Outreach Initiative, one of the things we want to do is try and bring that spirit back. That spirit, that we used to have at the Union with, the Kicks bands and just the scene. When I go to rehearsals with my dad, when he would be rehearsing for the different shows, when he was playing in Haig's band or playing with Bob Barkley's orchestra, and just that scene, it was just so energetic. And everybody just wanted to play all the time. And so we're trying to bring back that kind of a spirit through education. So, you know, we're not going to be able to have a club room like the Union had back in the day, but we are looking to bring back the Kicks Band. You know, we want to do that through our education programs with the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra, which we just got off the ground in February. And so to bring that kind of a spirit back, you know, we've created a mentorship program and have brought in a lot of pros from Vegas. Sonny's been to the rehearsals with the Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra. We've brought in a lot of pros to come in as mentors. Kurt has been a mentor for us, Danny Falcone, Wes Marshall, quite a few folks have, and to mentor these kids and sit in the sections with them, to play it for them, to sit in with the kids. And so what we want to do is, after our regular rehearsals, start a mentor Kicks Band, you know, and invite anybody in Vegas, any of the cats who want to play in a big band. We've got a huge book of all kinds of stuff to play through, and just invite cats to come and start playing every week for the sake of playing, just to play music, you know. And Gary and I talk all the time and talk about bringing in the Musicians Union to be a part of projects. I know Gary's talked to you about it, Keith, and to Jack, and you know, and we were just talking about doing something today, and really try and just lift the spirit of Vegas, you know, especially during this pandemic, what's going on. So we're launching a whole program online, a virtual program with Las Vegas Youth Jazz Orchestra. We've recorded 3 tunes that we've put out there already. We're planning on doing some things with Jazz at Lincoln Center to create online programs to help the schools out, to keep, you know, try and raise the spirits, you know, because that's really needed, especially right now. But you know, I just wanted to talk just a little bit about that to let you know what's behind what we're doing. Gary talked about our mission statement at the beginning a little bit, and I just wanted to interject a little bit about how I want to bring the spirit of Las Vegas. When I was a kid growing up there, learning, getting the most unbelievable education that money could never buy. I want to bring that back to Las Vegas and actually set it up through educational programs in partnership with folks like, you know, folks at the Musicians Union and Las Vegas Jazz Society and Nevada School of the Arts and UNLV and the Smith Center, all these, you know, Music Performance Trust Fund, all these organizations that we've been able to partner with, Las Vegas Youth Orchestras program. So I would just like to throw that out there to you guys. And I know Kurt is already involved as a mentor. Sonny's been involved as a mentor. I know you're not living in Vegas anymore, Chuck, but to the rest of you, we would love to have you come in and give advice at the very least. And if you wanted to come in and play with the kids and mentor, you know, if you're around in town, or any ideas you have of things that we can bring back through education to bring that vibe back to Vegas, you know, that vibration that was happening. It was so much fun, you know, and like for me as a kid, I was just like looking up at all of you and all the incredible musicians, man. It was just such an unbelievable scene. And I want to bring that education that I got, because I'm Roger Rampton's son, back to Las Vegas, you know, somehow. I'm not sure how, you know, but we're coming up with ideas, and just hearing the stories from you is so inspiring, and it reminds me when I was a kid, and what an unbelievable scene that was, man. You know, not just hearing the players, you know, like Chuck said, there are 3 bands a night at the Union, you know, like the baddest musicians in the world playing. And then there was the rec room in the back. I used to shoot pool with Carl Fontana, man.
These were good pool tables.
I was a 15, 16-year-old kid, man, shooting pool with Carl Fontana. You kidding me? You know, it was just, you know, it was such an unbelievable hang. What's that you got, Sonny?
That's the IPA trombone magazine with Carl's picture.
Man.
Yes, Kenny, you know, Kenny, I'll interject, but you're so right. When I was, you know, in 1976, Jimmy Trimble threw me onto the Jim Fuller, one of the late night bands, and then a couple others. And literally I'm a young kid, really still, I mean, pretty green. And one night, I mean, sitting next to Jimmy Trimble here, and then Bill Rogers had come in, and then Eddie Morgan, and then Carl Fontana would be there one night, and then Jimmy Hunsinger would be there one night. It was surrounded by that at a level of playing that was like literally 100 tiers above where I was at the time. you can't help but get better. There's just
Right.
you either get better or you're stepping in the cracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, all of the lessons I took in college, all of the different things I did didn't come close to those years playing with those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you
That
remember
mentorship that was happening in Vegas back then between pros and young kids, nobody planned it. It just happened.
Right.
And now I see, people in Vegas like Danny Falcone, Vince Falcone's son. He's grown into one of the great lead trumpet players of today.
Yeah.
And it was such an incredible mentorship. So that's one thing that we're focusing on, is trying to create a mentorship between the pros and the kids and bridge that gap, through education.
Exactly. You know that.
If I can.
Tom? What was that,
Go,
Tom?
Tom?
I said I'm happy to help if I can. If you need.
Oh, okay.
Great, and I would love to reach out to you and do that.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah.
Kenny, I did want to acknowledge one thing, because I know our time's winding down here. Kenny and I talked about this youth organization, Big Band, and I reminded him that a good model for this band had already been working for many years, and the leader of that band was Walt Benny.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, he had a band like this for years.
I did it 9 years.
Yeah.
9 years.
And I've talked to a lot of people that are now working musicians in town that credit that band with the reason that they became an actual professional musician.
That's cool, man.
So that's one of the inspirations for us to have this band and to have it be like that.
I still hear from those kids. I still call them kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Tom, you reminded me of a story earlier about when you mentioned Bill Reddy. My father told me he was playing in Bill Reddy's band at the Dunes, and they had, at the time, they had more than a big band. They had French horns, violins, the whole thing on their band. And Frederick Apgar came up after one of the shows. He came up to the bandstand. He's talking to Bill Reddy. He's going, "Man, do we need all these instruments?" And Bill said, "Yes." And Frederick Apgar said, "What about those things?" He's pointing at the French horns. He says, "Do we really need those curly horns?" And Bill Reddy, for everybody, he goes, "This is the Casino de Paris. It's a French show. Those are French horns. We need the French sound."
That's good.
You
gotta have a French instrument in there.
Many of you remember the story of Jean Lexia, who came there after that. And
yeah, Lexia.
That's the story I was going to tell.
Remember the Kenny Hing story?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
that's
The squirt gun story?
Yeah.
Story.
Oh, somebody's got to tell that one. It was named after Kenny Hing.
I'll
The short story of it is, John kept on bugging Kenny. And you know how Kenny puts everything in, and all of a sudden it comes out. So Kenny brings this water up there, and when John starts giving him a lot of shit, he just stands up and won't stop. He keeps shooting this water gun at him.
In the face.
The band didn't play. The band was broke up.
Yeah, a little background on that. John, the conductor was a nervous guy. He was very, very nervous all the time. He was just sort of wired all the time. And it was a sort of an exposed clarinet solo that Lexia would always worry about it all the time. And sure enough, after a while, Kenny just said, heck with it, didn't even pick up his clarinet. And when it came time for the cue for the clarinet solo, Kenny just stands up and starts squirting Lexia with the squirt gun. And that was, now he had just gotten hired on the Basie band and he was getting ready to leave. So that ended up being his last night as security escorted him out of the building.
Well, hey, let me tell you a really good positive Lexia story. Because I was, whatever time that was, I was a reliever for the Casino de Paris, whatever that was. And maybe I was subbing for the bass player, but it was enough time, and I was studying counterpoint at UNLV. And I'm not going to talk about my counterpoint teachers, but they really weren't doing that great. And Lexia, he looks at me, he says, do you know what you're doing? I says, well, this is what the thing says here and then the other. And he says, and he talked to me a little bit, and I told him that one of my musical heroes was Quincy Jones. And he goes, well, Quincy Jones went to the Paris Conservatory. Did you know that? I said, no. He says, they teach how to write the exact counterpoint that Bach wrote. So he says, here, give me this Mussorgsky's, what are those things called? The Mussorgsky's
Pictures?
Yeah. And he said, watch, just give me that line, and then I'll write the exact to the two-part conventions. Watch, just give me one line, and I'll write the exact counterpoint that Bach wrote. I went, what? I mean, this is crazy. But I'm in UNLV, I'm studying, I'm trying to learn composition, probably because Adele could write stuff when he was in high school, and I always wanted to do that. And so, sure enough, man, this dude could do it. Anyone, you could pick anyone. He'd write it, and then he'd show it to me. He says, yeah, now you can learn this. I was headed because of that. Now, he was a nervous ninny. He was really a nervous, and even as a kid, you could see that. It's like, man, what's wrong with this dude? But he sure enough was nice enough. The education on the bandstand, it was amazing. And everyone was like that. If they saw you were trying to do anything, right, in music, they give you a hand. Hey, man, let me help you out with that. And let me show you how to do that right. No, you don't want to do that. Do it this way. Go hear this guy. Go to the kicks band, sit in over there, get your butt kicked a little bit, and you'll be better. All of that. It was that whole time period was like, it was amazing. And I don't know who's listening on Facebook Live, but I would say this. If you're a youngster and you're looking to get started, you got to take the corrections, because a lot of this particular set of youngsters, I'm not sure how much instruction they want to hear. But when we were coming up, it was just, no, this is how you do it. Either you're doing it or you ain't. And if this is the level and you bring it to that level and you don't make mistakes. Can you make a mistake? Sure. But you don't make mistakes, right? It was like that. Anyway, I strayed. Lexia, that dude, man, it's sure enough, Casino de Paris. And he did that stuff. It's crazy.
And it could be just as easily learning about like how to mark music. Bill Rogers was a stickler about how you mark your music.
Yes.
Yeah, I was sitting next to him one night, and typical, still in college or something, and they wanted to cut from the end of bar 32 to the beginning of bar 64 or something. And what did we do in college? We'd scratch it all out, and like I start to do that, and Rogers grabs my arm, he just like, no, that's not how you do it. And he
right.
teach me how to do a cut. Or, when you don't play something, he teach me how to do the parentheses around what you don't play and stuff like that. All those little things that I didn't learn in school. From sitting next to these pros that were just.
Bill mentored me on writing.
Yes.
I taught all my middle school kids that how to mark them up, like I learned from the guys growing up as a teenager in LA, and also here in Las Vegas, how we mark books, how we mark tacits, how we mark section cuts, how we do this, how to circle something. So, all that type of stuff, because, like when you get to college, all of a sudden it's like when something has a parenthesis around it or it's circled, it means it's important. Right?
No. Please don't play.
You go anywhere in this district. I'm a retiree, and I'm going to say it. You go anywhere in this district, and what happens is, if it's an important part to be played, they circle it, and then and so then it was like when I started first experiencing this, it was like even when you get kids like. The younger players that come from very prominent universities, they come to Las Vegas, and so we're marking up a part in a rehearsal and stuff on a kicks band. And so what they do is they start marking it as they were taught by their former educators and band directors that it's like, I turn to them and says, you don't do that. You can't do that. Let me show you how to do it. And they go, well, when you do that, that means that it's very important. It doesn't mean that you don't play it. So I go, well, it's a little bit different out this way.
Yeah.
And that's very important that you learn how to do that. And Bill was very.
Let me pick up off of that with Bill, because, and I want to say this to encourage Kenny and Gary and Kirk with joy. My professional career was because of Bill Rogers, really, truly. But I was at SNISM's, which was a Southern Nevada music camp.
I went there too.
And I was playing bass. I played saxophone during high school, but I was playing bass. And Bill was one of the instructors. And he came up and he was listening to me play. I didn't know exactly, I was just good, but I didn't know what I was doing. And he says, hey, you know, you could be really good. I'm gonna give you my number, and you're gonna be able to do this, but you need to know exactly the right way. So what I'm gonna do, if your parents will let you, I'm gonna give you my card, you tell your parents, and then I'm gonna invite you to some of the rehearsals behind the curtain. You know, now you guys, you Ramptons, you might have been able to go behind the curtain into the showroom, but that was like a big deal to anybody else. It was always restricted. Like, you can't come in here, only authorized personnel. And I remember the first one, Bill Rogers, he took me to see Natalie Cole at the Sahara. And he said, and then he propped me up on the bandstand. Dick Jones was the bass player. And he says, hey, I want you to sit behind him and watch what he hasn't seen this music. Dick Jones, nobody has seen this music yet. And we got to do this rehearsal. Now he says, I did the arrangements, Bill. And he says, but now sit back here and watch these guys. And it was like, what an education. It's like, you're sight reading this? The guy ain't looking at the neck, you know, all of that stuff. He's just having to read, and you know, you don't get to make any mistakes, at least a little one, but maybe not at all, because you know, you start getting on his rhythm. Anyway, Bill Rogers, sure enough, man.
He was an amazing writer, arranger, and teacher. He was
a great bass trombone player too.
Yes, and great bass trombone player. Yeah, I know him so much.
He did that with me.
The mentorship thing, which you guys are doing, Kenny, that's a big deal to the kids. I mean, and those growing up that really want to do it. So it don't be discouraged at all, you know, because at all. I know you're not. But those are the opportunities that you just don't get, and to have people that are creating the avenue and the opportunity for people to find out how to do it, you know, at the level where, I mean, now you look at a lot of us and you say, man, I had a whole career because there was some folks like y'all that was able to say, look, this is how it's done. And and this is the level, and you can do it.
Thank you, Keith. This right now we're working on creating a band directors academy to teach the band directors how to better teach music, and it's something that Jazz at Lincoln Center does, that they've created, and band directors from all over the world come to New York to learn from Winton and different people involved with Jazz at Lincoln Center, to teach the teachers. So we're actually working on licensing that from Jazz at Lincoln Center and bringing a version of that to Las Vegas. And I think we need to have a notation class for the band directors so they know, because I see people on a professional level in New York who circle apart because it's important. But I learned you circle apart, you put parentheses around it because that's where you got to lay out. You know, and so that's, you know, that needs to be known, man. So I think we're going to have a course in our Band Directors Academy, if and when we're able to bring that to Vegas, about notation, and maybe we'll hit up Sonny Hernandez to teach it for us. I don't know.
Yeah, and how to properly mark.
Well, you
There's
know,
a proper way to mark a cut too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dale, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sonny, go ahead.
yes, you know, as just a point of view from, I've been very lucky to play with all of you guys in one setting or not. I've been very blessed to play along with a lot of just wonderful musicians. And one thing, when I started coming over to watch Joy, right? Yeah, Joy. I'm sorry, I'm in a brain fart. But anyway, when I came over to watch the youth band, I have to, if any educators in the CCSD are watching now, these gentlemen run this organization, this ensemble, in a very professional manner. And it's just an outrageous opportunity for any of your young novice students or even advanced students to come in and experience what they've experienced, what they have to offer musically to the kids. And you know that I would encourage that any of you educators that have a jazz band program or you know that you have, or you're thinking about starting one, this would be a resource for you to begin with. Because you know, in California, when you know, most of the guys, you know, like we had kicks bands and stuff. In LA, we had stuff. But a lot of places are a little bit more isolated. And sometimes they're not, jazz is not so much welcomed into the curriculum or into the school itself. And this is a wonderful opportunity for any of the students to immerse themselves in this music and make life better for you and easier for you as their director when you've got jazz band. That's enough.
Thank you, Sonny. We're gonna use that clip.
Yeah,
As promotion.
You're now the Joy poster boy.
I'm talking of hot wings, please.
So, guys, we're at the end of our time, and unless anybody has anything they want to say or you know, some kind of story you want to relate,
come on, Chuck Dalton, you got one more story for us, don't you?
No, man, you know, we're gonna get.
We have to go offline with.
I got a dozen of them now. I can tell here, you know.
I got one.
Okay.
And I got one, and it was rather a horrifying experience when it happened.
Okay, Sonny, I got my finger on the mute button. Go ahead.
Okay, it's okay. So during the '84 strike, Jack Aglash had the DI band, and he also had the Dunes. And he sent me over to the Dunes to go work during the strike because the hotel was open, and we're working Jack Jones. So as you know, we're working Jack Jones. The trombone section is myself, Ken Tiffany, and Carl Fontana. Okay,
Wow.
and Carl Saunders was the lead trumpet. Greg Marcial was there, and we were into this. You know, we were about 3 or 4 days into the show, and with Jack Jones, and Carl, you know, was always kind of like, he was totally relaxed, and so. We're getting, the MD puts on his earphones and he goes like this, and we're waiting for the light to go from red to green so he can give the downbeat for the overture into the show. So we all got our horns up, we're getting ready to play. And the last thing I remember is Carl sitting sideways like this and putting his finger out towards the microphone. And then all of a sudden the director, I forget his name, goes to give a big downbeat, you know, for the overture, and there is the most god-awful, blood-curdling scream you've ever heard that goes into the microphones through the house. So the guy waves us off, and he stops, and we all look, and it was Carl Fontana had grounded himself on the rail behind when he touched the microphone and was electrocuted.
Oh my God!
The scream was just continuing. It was like everyone was in shock, and before anyone could even put their horn down and like shove him or stuff, he pulls his finger away, and Jack Jones came rushing down. He goes, "What's going on? What's going on?" And Jack's going, "What's up? What's up?" And I cleaned that up, but he came like, "What's going on?" You know, and that, and so then. You know, found out, well, Carl, that, you know, he electrocuted himself and he's all shaking. So the good part was that he was okay. He was fine. He was a shook, right?
Thank God.
And so Jack says the show goes on. And he just walks off. And sure enough, the guy puts on his in. Bang, we go into the overture. So we're in there, and Carl couldn't play. He could not play. He was still shook up. He was shaking from it. And during this one part, Jack was out, you know, talking to the audience, and he was going to sing a ballad. and the theme from Cats. That's what was popular. So he's getting ready to sing, and out of nowhere, Ken Tiff leans over to Carl and says, "So is Jack Jones featuring the electrifying Carl Fontana tonight?" and Carl had a great sense of humor, and all he said was, Ken Tiff. That was it. Yeah.
That's great. Hey, man, everybody check out the screen behind Kurt.
Yeah.
He's got his background.
I saw it, yeah.
Who are those three young guys?
The Desert Inn trombone section, about 84, I think.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
I should have taken better care of myself.
It's nice seeing all of you guys, man.
Yeah, man.
Really nice seeing all of you. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
man.
Yeah, guys, listen, we're at the end, so I want to thank you guys not only for your time today, but for your time that you've given me and other, other students and musicians over the years. That's what our motto, "Let's make a difference," is all about. So I have a personal connection to each and every one of you, and I want to tell you thank you for being here today, and thank you for what you've meant in my career. All right. And so listen, we're going to do another one of these, and I'd love to have you guys back. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Listen, we'll say bye for now. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
CD. Yeah, CD.
Good to see you, Chuck.
All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.